Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy. Today we have a fantastic guest on, somebody that I actually had seen on social media, Facebook, following him around, watching his stuff, listening to his stuff. He was engaging with my posts, and I thought, maybe if I ever get to meet this guy, that would be awesome. Walked into an NSA meeting, and lo and behold, there he was, Les Patterson. And just to give you a little bit of background on him, he actually is an engaging storyteller, which you're going to find out, but an engaging storyteller, speaker, writer, mentor, and military veteran. Les is the chief storyteller at Red Edge Mentoring and helps people discover the persuasive power of story to influence themselves and those they lead. Now, storytelling, from my belief, is pretty much the core of everything when it comes to influence, being able to connect with somebody and draw them in and lead them so that they can accomplish more in their life. And so he's going to talk about that, and then he's going to talk about how we can create our own story so that we can lead ourselves, because that's equally, or if not more important than leading others. So super excited about that. Les, thank you so much for being on. Go ahead and just share a little bit about your background, where you came from, and how you got into the storytelling space, and really why you founded Red Edge Mentoring.
Oh, Sam, thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to hang out with you today and to share some thoughts and really to tell some stories, because that's what I'm all about, is being able to tell some stories and help other people tell stories that can persuade themselves, persuade their team, their family, and persuade their clients or their customers. And so essentially my entire profession, I've been in the storytelling industry. Years and years and years ago, I was a stringer. I was a reporter for a newspaper, and I started to learn the concept of what it meant to take information and then use it to communicate to another person and influence another person. And I spent some time in the newspaper world. I spent some time in the marketing world. I spent some time in the radio world. And all of that came down to was using a story of some kind to make a connection with another person or another organization to influence them to take a course of action. Well, the greatest thing that I learned through all of that of using story to make connections was the very first story, and the very first connection we need to have is with ourself. Mm-hmm. And that's the internal story that drives who we are, the kind of person that we are, the way that we get up every day, or the way we let life defeat us, or we engage with life and we create life. We create our future, or we are created by the circumstances. And so everything I've done professionally, personally, has all led to the concept that if we can use our story to influence ourselves more effectively, then we're going to be able to use our story to influence someone else more effectively. And that's what led to the creation of Red Edge Mentoring 3 years ago, was taking all those years of experience and putting it together and say, we can use our story more effectively to make a difference in our own life and in the lives of those that we lead, in the life of those we wish to influence.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that it's interesting where people get their start and where they get their passion and what circumstances lead to that. I had no idea you'd worked in the news and the radio and the newspaper, like all those things. That I think that'd be great training ground for learning to tell a story. I'm curious, just because right now we're recording this and it's right before the 4th of July. But so thank you for your military service. But like, what was that like, gaining those experiences, and then how have you used stories from your military experience to kind of lead you and motivate you to become who you are today?
Oh, wow. Wow. So can I actually tell you a story then?
Oh, please do. Please do. Yes.
So I was a young boy, and my dad was in the military. He was in the Utah Army National Guard, and so one weekend a month, a couple weeks during the summer, he would get dressed up into his army greens and put on his black boots, and he'd go off and he'd play army. And I was enthralled by what he did, and I didn't really know what he did as a kid, but my favorite thing at the time, and I'm talking when I'm young, like 7, 8, 9 years old, is I like to polish his boots. I'd polish his black boots for him. And I didn't learn till years later that my dad always had to repolish them because I got too much. I'd get too much polish on them. And so I grew up watching my dad and other people that I loved and admire going off to play army, and I wanted to be an army guy. And I had this dream as I got to see more of what my dad did and what his unit did in our hometown of Richfield, which ironically, that's where I'm going to be for the 4th of July. I wanted to be the guy on top of the howitzer. Now, a howitzer is, a lot of people look at it and say, oh, it's a tank, because it's got tracks on it and it's got a tube, a cannon sticking out of it. It's different. A howitzer is a long-range cannon that shoots a large shell, 18, 20 miles plus. And I wanted to be the guy that got to ride on top of that. I wanted to be the chief of that. And the day that I was old enough to join the military, I was 17 and a few months old, and I went and joined, went to basic training, and I spent 24 years in the military, in the National Guard. And I spent my last several years being the guy on top of that howitzer. A dream came true. And one other big part of that journey was the opportunity to go to Iraq in the early days of that conflict with my National Guard unit, and go over there and try to make a difference for that beautiful country and those beautiful people that live there, and and try to make our country a little more safe against this reign of terror that we're still dealing with. We're still dealing with today, unfortunately. And so I got to go to Iraq. I spent 2004, a good part of 2004, 2005 in Iraq, and it was an incredible opportunity. It was an incredible blessing. It shaped me a lot. It was a tough journey, and it was tough for our unit. We lost one of our soldiers that was there. His name was Sergeant First Class Ronald Wood. He was one of our senior leaders, and that was a tough day. Since then, there's been some other tough days, and this is something I'm also very passionate about, is because since then, the suicides that we have lost of some of our fellow soldiers that I served with, we've now lost 2 who have been killed by suicide since we've come home. And Cramey and Loveless. Cramey and I were really good friends, and that's sad. It's hard. That cost is high, and so one of the things I'm passionate about is it's also working with other veterans and help them tell a better story themselves, so that we can move forward through really hard times by creating a better story for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. I had no idea that was even part of the motivation here, but I'm glad I asked that question. Something that I want to just point out, because we're gonna get into more details about this here shortly, but from a child age, Les had decided he wanted to do something. He had envisioned himself. He had created his story years before he ever lived his story. He had created it in his mind. He had emotionally been there, that had the excitement, had the motivation and the desire to do so, took the action, and ultimately lived his story after he had created it. And that's a big part of learning to tell your own story, is to tell your own story to yourself of what you want your life to be. I'm excited to have him share more about that specific aspect, because it's going to relate directly to helping your military veterans, helping people who have come home alter their story in a way that rather than, I mean, I know people who have had severe PTSD, and as a result of some coaching, mentoring, and learning to tell a different story about the experiences, have actually been, we'll say, cured from the PTSD. It doesn't affect them the way it did before they learned a different storyline. So how do you go about that with, I mean, because one thing that I've seen or I've heard and studied is the emotional connection. So like the emotional event, that really is the root of a story that we tell ourselves, and then we start telling ourselves a story past that or about that event, and that's where we get into some of these super anxiety or depression. It happens with mothers, happens with fathers, happens because of financial stress or children who aren't behaving, or unfaithful spouses. It happens for whatever reason, but we have an event, causes a deep-seated emotional reaction inside of us, and as a result, we start telling ourselves a story about it. So how do you go about helping somebody really shift their story, especially from an event that's as tragic as war, and as emotionally and physically engaging as war is? How do you help them really shift that story? Like, what's the process look like?
Well, I think the process is, I think it's identical no matter what kind of story that we are trying to shift or create, whether it's a story or whether because we're impacted by trauma, or we're impacted by memories of the past, or we're trying to envision a better future, and we're trying to create something, whether it's a business or an idea or a concept, or we just want to be simply a better person, a better dad, a better mom, a better sibling, a better storyteller, a better financial planner, whatever it is. It's all, I believe, it's really all totally connected. And that is recognizing that everything that we do, there is an emotional element that's attached to it. When we think about, let's use kind of a classic story for just a second. If we hear a certain song years later that was tied to a particular event in our childhood or our teenage years or our courtship years, that song will take us right back there, and we feel those same experiences that we had at the time. Now, interestingly enough, what we feel is not necessarily always going to be accurate. It may not be a true representation of what happened at the moment. We may feel, the excitement of that very first date, the first time I held my wife's hand, or the first time we had a kiss. And it creates these really great feelings and emotions. But what we don't remember is I forgot to open the door for her and she was a little upset at me. Or I don't remember that the car battery was dead and we had to find a jump. And it's because we've chosen to focus on the really beautiful, fun, good part of that event or that memory. Well, it's also true on the trauma or the hard things in life. Often those are so impactful that we focus only on that impact moment. We focus only on the trauma. We focus only on the pain and the hurt and the sorrow and the sadness, which those are real, and I won't ever diminish them. I'm not going to diminish my own that I've experienced in my life, but I will focus on the good. And the way all of this comes together, I believe, is the power of consistency. Samuel, when we focus on something over and over and over, it's going to start manifesting in our life. So if we focus on negative things over and over and over and over, we are going to see and feel and experience and attract and act out more negative things. And the opposite of that is exponentially true. If we focus on powerful, beautiful, wonderful, good, truthful, beautiful, light, bright things and activities and ideas and memories and dreams and visions and goals, those are also going to come true. It is what is most consistent. That's the power. What is most consistent? Through all of this, Samuel, I've developed my own personal mantra, and it's fine-tuned, and I've tweaked it over the years, but it really boils down to this. The story that I most consistently tell myself will be the story to most consistently come true in my life. So I will create a beautiful, wonderful, and powerful story. And if that's true for me, Sam, it's going to be true for you.
Yeah,
true for each one of us.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that, and I think that that's good advice. That it's the same process no matter what we're coming from or moving towards. I love that. The more consistent story you tell yourself is what will come true. So create a more beautiful, wonderful story for yourself. I completely agree. Now, I'm curious, at what point in your life, because I know you've made a shift, right? You've been in the military, you've done some different things in your life. At what point did you really start thinking, okay, this is the legacy I want to build. This is what I want to be remembered as. Let's go build a mentoring business. When did you start really thinking about your legacy and what you're going to leave behind?
It's come over a long time period. And it wasn't always connected to a business idea. It was more connected, initially and still primarily in the fact that I'm going to be a voice of hope. I'm going to be a voice of encouragement. I'm going to be a voice of possibility. I'm not going to be a voice of negativity or limitation or you can't do this. I'm going to be a voice that says, yes, you can. And I can. And together we can. And as that is shaped over time period, eventually in the business side of it, I realized that the business could become a tool to help me get my voice more broad, to reach more people, to have a broader impact. And so I started 9 years ago. It came a lot with my transition of coming home from Iraq. That was a catalyst experience in my life. A lot of things that I had in my life prior to that, I let go. For instance, I was a news junkie before going to Iraq. I always watched the news. I read a lot of news. I consumed a tremendous amount of news. I came home and I'm not really a news guy anymore. I don't spend time at all reading, watching, consuming the news. I'm not ignorant. I'm aware of things. I pay attention, but I don't consume the news anymore. And so that was a shift. That was a major shift. I started writing a weekly a blog that for years I just sent out via email. It was never online anywhere. I sent it out via email called the Monday Morning Boost. I love Mondays. I think you have a great Monday, you get to have a great week. And so I created and started sharing a story. It's been over 9 years now that I've written a story every Monday morning. And it's a thought, it's an idea, it's a concept, it's a story. And that started saying, okay, I get my voice out there more. I can share it with more people. And I've been honored to have thousands of people over the years that have said, yeah, I want to be part of that. I'd love to receive that. And I've just expanded it over the years. 3 years ago, I launched Red Edge Mentoring to formally be able to use my ideas, my thoughts, my encouragement, my voice, my writing to formally help others tell their story to impact themselves, those they lead, and their customers.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So I just love that. I'm curious because you've written a lot of stories. You've told a lot of stories. I've never thought to ask this before, but I'm curious. What do you feel more has more impact, or is it completely situational? A real life story that you're retelling of an experience that was actually happened with somebody you know, or a created almost parable type story? Is it more effective to tell a story of something that actually happened and then draw meaning out of it, or kind of construct a parable to really tell the meaning that you want to tell?
I think they're both very, very powerful. I think Dr. Seuss is one of the greatest teachers of all time. And his lyrical rhymes of making connections with make-believe things has had significant influence on people. Mr. Rogers is my hero. And Mr. Rogers lived in the world of make-believe. And he brought people into the world of make-believe and introduced them to reality at the same time. So I think Aesop's fables are biblical parables, are all powerful teaching tools, and they have their place. I also think, and this is where most of my stories, speaking, writing are coming out of actual stories, whether stories from myself, stories from people that I know, or stories from history that I draw upon and share that story and make connections with that. So they're equally powerful. Some may connect better at different times in their life, different situations, different ages. As a child, a Dr. Seuss and a Mr. Rogers is going to have much more impact than telling a business story to a 5-year-old, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So how can we use a story to impact who we want to influence? What's the right tool? What's the right kind of story? I've talked about my time in Iraq in many different ways to many different audiences. When I speak to a class of 5th graders, which I do every year, the same teacher has me in every year, I talk to them differently than I talk to high school or college age students, than I talk to fellow veterans.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different audience, different story, different detail of a story, different emotions of a story.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love how dialed in you are on even using probably the same story for all of the audiences, but just as you said, drawing out different aspects of the story to communicate the different message. I think a lot of people, when they start thinking about like writing a book or writing a book is one, being a public speaker, anything mentoring wise, they think, oh, I have to come up with a new story for every circumstance. And the people that I've seen the most is how many ways to use a different story. Maybe I should write a book about that, or you should just take one story and write a book and say, okay, well, I'm going to tell this story and I'm going to draw out these principles. So the story remains the same, but then the different principles, each chapter is a progressive different audience for each chapter. I don't know. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. That's a creative idea. We may have to play with that a little bit.
Yeah. No, anybody who listens to this, they can take me up on it. I don't know. I just think like I'm all about. I think my area of creativity is in looking at things a different way than they've been looked at before, and saying, what if we did it this way, right? What if we created a book this way, or an experience? So another one of my book ideas. I like to share these because I think more people need to. I want to see it done. I guess I'm too lazy to do it myself. I don't know, but or I just haven't got around to it. But writing a book in a lyric, like a musical grammatical marking, I guess. It's not really grammatical, but musical dynamical markings, writing the book so that you're communicating exactly how the book is supposed to be read through musical dynamic marking. So when you're crescendoing and getting louder, then it's already written into the text, so you know exactly how to read the book.
Ah, that's a very intriguing concept. And for some people, that would go right over their head. They would
Oh,
make
totally.
no connection. And other people, it would become this incredibly rich, very immersive experience, unlike anything they'd ever had before.
Yeah. No, so I like those ideas of just like how can we enhance the experience of relaying information, primarily because I feel, and I think of these things because I feel they're solutions to my own, I guess the story I tell myself of my own inability to communicate. When we're just reading text, then everybody can read the text in a different way. And so they're going to get something out of the text different than what I intended it to be. And so for me how can I convey my specific intentions with as much clarity as possible so that if I give you my speech or I give you my book, that you're almost forced to go through the same emotional journey as far as a state change as I am, because the only way to read it is to go through those same intonations and as if I was sitting there talking face to face like we are now, but all of that would be written into the book so they can read it as if I'm having a conversation with them, not
Yeah,
just reading a text.
very, very intriguing. Yeah, very intriguing. I like that.
My mind plays some things. So I'm curious for you, what do you feel like is your secret weapon in the storytelling industry or the mentoring industry? What do you feel like is your specific habit, mindset, or behavior that really helps you, one, tell yourself a better story, and like what are the tactical things that you do to create a story that's emotional and meaning and moving for yourself, and then also how do you teach that to others?
All right, so let's look at one piece of that to
Okay.
start with, and I'm gonna pull back in my personal mantra for just a
Huh?
second. So the story I most consistently tell myself will be the story to most consistently come true in my life. So I will create a beautiful, powerful, wonderful story. Consistency is the key there. But what's written or not written between those words is some days that good story does not happen. And for instance, yesterday evening was one of those days where I got mentally beat up pretty bad. I had a really challenging, self-defeating, imposter syndrome. How are we ever going to do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it became a little bit overwhelming. I was trying to do some book work. I was trying to write. I've got a big project that's due on Friday. Got a holiday, and I was shut down. I was unable to work through that, and I kind of went into this little mini spiral that was going downward. And that's how I went to sleep last night. And that's not a good way to go to sleep. Not a good way to go to sleep at all. So guess how I woke up this morning?
Same way you always do.
No,
Oh, no.
I was still in that spiral when I woke up this morning. I was still in that mental, overwhelming state. And so I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice this morning. Who am I going to be? Who am I going to be right now? Who am I going to be for myself? Who am I going to be for those that are counting on me? And you know what, Samuel? I thought about you. I thought, okay, I've got someone that's counting on me to be ready to have a great, engaging conversation with them. I owe that to Samuel. So, Samuel, thank you. You were one that was an influence on me this morning. And sometimes life can get tough enough that we may not have the strength on our own to do just for ourselves. And so it's times like that when it's good we have other reasons besides just ourselves to create a better story, to get up and go to work, to be disciplined, to be motivated, to step forward, to step up and step forward. Sometimes we need a hand. Sometimes the only strength we may have is literally to lift up a pinky finger and say, Sam, pull me up. And other times we are going to be the one reaching down saying, come on, Sam, I've got you. Come with me. We're going to do this together. And so that's why consistency is so powerful, because bad days, discouraging moments, traumatic events, life is still going to happen. I have a client I'm working with that in the last 30 days has lost a cousin, a best friend, and a very close friend to suicide in the last 30 days.
Oh my gosh.
This person is dealing with some really deep, discouraging life factors right now. And going through a separation and a divorce at the same time. Dealing with custody and children and challenging employment situation. It's all hitting at the same time. But this individual keeps coming back and saying, you know what, I'm telling a better story. Yes, this hurts. It really hurts. And you process those emotions and you cry. And sometimes you need a shoulder to cry on, and sometimes you just need a really big hug. Mm-hmm. That just encompasses you and warms you. And sometimes you need the mercy of God and his grace to be able to do something that no one else can do. And then we get back up. And we have help to get back up, and we move through those moments. We process those moments, because consistency becomes the strength. If we consistently beat ourselves up, it's going to be harder to get back up. But if we are more consistent in telling a better story to ourselves, to our team, to those we wish to influence, then when the hard moments happen, we're going to move through them much easier. When challenging moments happen in a company, we're going to move through those much easier, because we've got this incredible foundation of worth and of value and of hope and of opportunity and optimism, instead of the opposite of all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would agree. It's interesting because once you've done it for long enough, I think I sometimes I forget how consistent telling my story to myself, like how consistent I actually am. And I don't really recognize the difference in my story versus somebody else's story until it comes face to face and we both experience the same event. And one person takes the negative story out of it, and I'm not always, I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I have times just like yourself where I go to bed feeling absolutely discouraged, like it's never going to work and I don't want to get up in the morning. And I have those times, but I would say for the most part, I'm just have trained myself to see the positive in every experience and to just tell myself a positive story. And then when other people come in contact with that, they're like, how are you not stressed out? How are you not losing your mind right now? It's like, that story doesn't ever even cross my mind. Like, now that you're bringing it up, I guess I could feel that way, but that story never even crosses my mind because I just don't allow that story into my existence. And I think that's a goal. That's a place to go. And I know that when I get in contact, so I went golfing with some buddies, and it's interesting. You get to a certain level of mindset that you, not to say that I think I've arrived, but I think that when I'm associated with certain people, then I feel like, I'm the almost always positive one out of the group of people that I hang out with, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then you go hang out with people who are at the next level of positivity, of complete ownership of their life and their mistakes and everything that they do in life. Like, even at another level than me, I'm like, wow, I probably, like, now I understand how some of these other people feel about me, because now I'm in the presence of people who are way better at this than I am. And it's a little bit humbling to recognize, okay, there's no end to this. Like, it's never going to end. And those people, when you're talking to somebody who makes $5 or $6 million a year and they've created the story that that's who they are, and their actions are consistent with that, and then they go hang out with a few billionaires and they're like, whoa, how do I get to that level of ownership of my life and
Right.
intention and focus? Yet for somebody who's making $12,000 a year, being around a bunch of people who earn $100,000 a year, they're like, how is that ever going to happen? It's so unfathomable to make that jump. But I think it's needed to hang out at least part of your time with people who are, as you said, pulling you up, reaching back and saying, hey, let's go do this together.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, the most successful people that I know in life, all of them, without exception, are all reaching back, arms extended, on the high ground, doing everything they can to lift people up to where they're at. Like, they've recognized the happiness that is achieved there, and they're just trying to help people get to that same level with love in their heart,
Yes.
reaching back.
Yes. And the old adage of, those who we surround ourselves with most consistently, we're going to be impacted by that. And so if it's people that are negative or that are toxic or that are pulling us down most consistently, then that's where our state of mind is going to be, and that's where our actions are going to be. And if it's the opposite of that, like you're talking about, it's people that are opening their heart and they're pulling us and they're encouraging us and they're prodding and pushing at times, and maybe they're kicking us in the butt when we need that kick in the butt. And maybe they're just simply saying, like Mr. Rogers did, I love you just exactly as you are.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. No holds barred, doesn't matter. I love you. Then, wow. We in turn, we feel that, and then we give it. We will end up giving more love. We will give more encouragement to ourselves and to those that we love and that we want to influence. Consistency in our own language, our own story, consistency in those that we surround ourselves with, consistency in practices and habits and intentions. Consistency brings all of these together. If you're a golfer, I'm not a golfer. I golfed one time and it was the longest 3 hours of my life, and I got to hold it for 4. And I think my shoulder still hurts from that, and that was almost 30 years ago. But if you're going to improve in your golf game, you've got to be consistent in practicing. You've got to watch others. You've got to hang out with better golfers. You have to teach others, because when you teach, you become better. You may need a coach, a mentor. You may need different coaches. The greatest golfers in the world have coaches, have mentors who help them see their game. You may need that caddy who's your spotter, who's helping you get out of your head and helping you drown out the noise of the world and of the crowd that surrounded you, helping you to be focused. Well, who's our mentors and our caddies and our coaches in our life? Some of us are blessed to have really good family support. Some are not. Some are blessed to have really good organizational support or community support or neighbor support. Some of us are not. So where we don't have, how do we go get?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Where we're lacking, how do we go find ways to gain? And surrounding ourselves with other people, surrounding ourselves with language, and surrounding ourselves with intentions and habits makes a difference.
Totally. So that's a good question. How would people go about getting in touch with you? How do they consume more of your content and learn how to better tell tell themselves a better story and also ultimately teach others to tell a better story. How do they do that? How do they get in on your email list or whatever to get your Monday story? Just tell people how to get a hold of you, Les.
Okay. So one of the most active ways to engage me is right on Facebook. You can find just through myself, Les Patterson, and I am a very regular contributor to on Facebook. And so find me there, engage with me there, friend me there, follow me there. If you'd like to receive the Monday morning boost every Monday morning without fail, go to rededgementoring.com and you can sign up for it there. There'll be the little sign up link on it, or you can drop me a note through Facebook and say, hey, Les, connect me, tell me a story. And I'll share a story with you.
That's awesome. And one thing I will say about Les, I've interviewed a lot of people on here, and it's interesting. They say, oh, I'm most active on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or wherever they say they're most active. And I think that a lot of people, they are active there. The question is, and this is something that Les kind of hinted at, but he does contribute to his own stuff a lot. But one thing that's, I believe, very unique about Les, I know maybe a handful of people who actually are this committed, but Les also will engage with you on your stuff. If you're going out and you're friending him, he will engage on your posts. He'll share and he'll spread into helping you with your message as well. And that, I think, and that's just a wonderful thing to find in somebody who's as successful as Les is, and then just as we've talked about, turning around and going out and reaching out to the people who are following him, the people who've trusted him to be in, for him to be one of the 5 people that they choose to consume their information and hang around. He's willing to give back to you and to your efforts as well. And so I really respect that from Les. And that's actually how I started engaging with Les, is we became friends on Facebook, and then he started engaging on my stuff and vice versa. And that's actually how that was the initial relationship that we had until NSA, as I spoke about in the beginning, when I actually met him in person. I'm grateful I met him. So thank you for that. The next section here is called Legacy on Rapid Fire. We're going to ask 5 questions. And with these 5 questions, we're looking for like a 1-word to 1-sentence answer, just to keep it moving fast. But 5 questions. This is going to tell people where you're headed, kind of your ups and downs, and then how to kind of level up to get to your level. So the first question is, what do you feel is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
That would be additional people and additional systems, people and systems.
Okay. And what do you believe the hardest thing you've ever accomplished is?
Oh, wow. Changing and allowing God to be part of this process of changing from a person who totally felt invisible, unknown, and of no value to being a person that is visible, impactful, and of incredible value. And I owe that to God to help me see the potential in myself.
Awesome. I love that. And what do you feel is the greatest success at this point in your life?
Oh, my family by far. I have a beautiful wife. I have 5 incredible children who are each leading their own adult lives. And I've got 1 granddaughter, absolutely beautiful, and another grandson to be born here in just a few days.
Oh, that is exciting. My little, I guess not little sister, littler, but not younger. So she just had her baby yesterday morning or 2 nights ago, I guess. So super cute kids. It's exciting. I think it's the 18th or 19th grandchild for my parents. So they're pumping them out. Okay. So what do you believe is the secret that contributes most to your success?
Consistency.
Okay. And what books would you recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
So three books. The book that made the very first huge impact. All right, I'm going to categorize. whatever is your spiritual guidance in your life. If you're a Christian, the biblical scriptures, your holy scriptures. I've got friends that are of the Islam faith. The Quran to them. Embrace your holy books. Whatever they are to you, embrace them. Secondary from that, there's been 3 particular books that have had incredible impact on me, and they are not in any particular order. But Brian Tracy's Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. Significant impact on how we use our thoughts to change where we're going in our life. And that came to me at a very catalyst time in my life. Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand, the concept of using story to build a legacy in the business model, of how to 7-part framework of using story to become a guide to influence your customers through that. And then Simon Sinek's Start With Why. When we understand why we do what we do, we will lead better, we will communicate better, we will run a better organization, we will lead our families better, because we understand why it is that we're doing it. And ultimately, we will communicate, in the business end, we'll be able to better communicate to our customers the value that we bring to them.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Now, this is my favorite question of the whole episode. We're wrapping up. And the question is, we have to pretend that you're dead now, okay? So you've died. We're now talking 6 generations deep from you. So your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, they're sitting around the dinner table and they're discussing your legacy and what your life meant. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy at that time?
I would hope that they saw that 6th great-grandfather who kept getting up and kept going, loved people, and loved God.
Awesome. I love that, and I'm sure you're well on your way to do that. So thank you so much, Les. Just remember, for people who are listening, rededgementoring.com, and then you can also find Les Patterson on Facebook. Are you on Instagram at least? Just maybe not as active there?
On, but not active.
On, but not active. Awesome. So Facebook sounds like the best place to get a hold of him. That's where I met him. And definitely go engage with him there, and then go to his website, figure out how to get registered for his email list and his stories every Monday. Super excited for everybody who gets to engage with you. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know it is a busy week being 4th of July, but thank you so much for being on and sharing some of those personal stories for you, being vulnerable and opening up so people can see what it really is like to be an entrepreneur and somebody who's out intentionally creating rather than just passively living.
Awesome. It's been my honor, Samuel. Thank you for what you're building with your own legacy and your life, and the impact that you're having on others as well. You are telling yourself an incredible story, and it's making a difference.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And we will catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.